Hi, I'm going to talk to you today about Psalms 22nd, 1 through 11. I want to talk about that particular scripture on today, Psalms 22. That's the book of Psalms 22, verses 1 through 11. And I want you to think with me from a subject, a plea for deliverance. And this lesson is focused on continue to cry to God no matter how far away he seems. Continue to cry to God no matter how far away he seems. David's experience, as described there in this book of Psalms, the 22nd book of Psalms, vividly foreshadow those of Jesus' death on the cross. If you was to look at David's experiences, you'll see that they did foreshadow a whole lot of Jesus' experiences on the cross. He painted what you would call a word picture of a crucifixion, even though that form of punishment did not exist during his time. In that first part of Psalm, you'll notice that David prayed about his suffering. That suffering that David experienced, it echoed by Jesus, who cried out to the Father as he was suffering on the cross. At that moment, Jesus felt alone. At that moment, Jesus felt utterly forsaken. Look at Matthew 7:27, 46 for more scriptural background. But during that distressing, and it was a very distressing prayer, because we're talking about a plea of deliverance. And that prayer was very distressing to David. But David reflected on the fact that he knew the Father's character. He knew the Father's track record. He knew God from prior times of desperation. God have already come through for you. He know that God always come through. And David felt this situation ignored and helpless as enemies mocked him, made fun of him, and he referred to himself as a dirty, low-down worm. But despite the desperate prayer, I want you to notice that David continued to speak about the faithfulness of God. He referred back to the time of his birth when the father watched over the child in his mother's womb and made a safe passage for him into the world. God done that for all of us. Amid the crucifixion horror, Jesus called the Father my God. And this title indicated the continual relationship and confidence that he had in his Father. Because if you were to look at it, you'll see that the word trust is used 11 times uh, in verses 1 through 11, because God the Father is always faithful. And children, we need to always remember he's always faithful. God delivered David, and God brought victory for his son on Sunday after the horrible scene on the cross. Jesus walked away. Jesus walked away from the grave. The mockers were silent. Those who saying, if you be the Son of God, come down, they were silent. And the disciples were reassured. They went from horror to unspeakable confidence because they had seen Jesus for themselves. And so Jesus' crucifixion for all times, and listen, for all time, his crucifixion would be an excellent reminder of God's faithfulness. Throughout the Bible, believers are strongly encouraged to seek the Father's hand in distressing matters. God does hear the cries of his children, and we need to know that. And he always in the process of working things out on their behalf. The Bible says all things work together for the good, to them who love God and call according to his purpose. For he shall, the Bible said, deliver the needy when they cried, the poor also, and him that had no helper. Look at Psalm 72:12. Again, I want to reiterate the fact to you. Continue to cry to God, no matter how far away he seems. I want to remind you that God pays the highest wages for labor. And I also encourage you with these words to keep looking up. Keep looking up. Keep looking up, because you can't see God looking down.